way of thinking. It's really a way of thinking, a strategic way of thinking that it comes essentially out of chess. But in the textbook that I wrote, I have a lot of analogies. And you can use sports as an analogy. You can use war as an analogy. This is where strategy originates. And the basic idea is SCA. I have typically a lot of engineers in my class. So even though this is not a discipline where you can create formulas, I've created a formula because I think it gives them a comfort level, or at least it's a way of me presenting the material. So SCA stands for Sustained Competitive Advantage. I don't know if sustained competitive advantage is your goal. If I think about major corporations, that's what they're looking at. They're looking to be dynasties, right, for a long period of time to dominate their industries. The industries themselves are shifting at all points in time. So if you use the sports analogy, being a dynasty is, any sports team can win one world championship. That's maybe a result of luck. But to do it year after year, and we know in various sports, to take baseball, let's say like St. Louis Cardinals and New York Yankees have been most consistently successful over time. It's not just a one-time thing. If you think about college football, it seems the players don't really matter. There are certain schools that year after year are dynasties because they continue to dominate. But I would say in your context, it's not sustained competitive advantage. It's sustaining your businesses in the long term, which is I think a little bit of a different goal. You're not really that directly even competing against each other in many instances. You're really dividing up the market and being more supportive in that. So that part of the analogy might not be entirely true. But the other parts of it, I think, at least some of it really makes a lot of sense. So EA stands for external analysis. So if you think about the chess analogy, so if you're a chess player, how many people in the room play chess? Or all right, the basic rules. Everybody knows the basic rules. So if you're a chess player, the stupidest way to play chess would be to close your eyes and hopefully you know how to move the various pieces and to randomly move the pieces, correct? Before you make a move in chess, you do a very, very careful external analysis of how your opponent's pieces are arrayed on the chessboard, and you do a very careful analysis of your own internal pieces, how they are arrayed. You look externally and you look internally, and then you make moves. And that is the basic way of thinking strategically. When you think strategically, you're looking for externally this is classic, what are the opportunities and the threats? And you're looking internally, what are your strengths and weaknesses? And you're trying to achieve a match. So to give a very weird example, like if I look at opportunities and threats, a sports example, I might think that it would be tremendously interesting, exciting, financially rewarding if I were to aspire to become a professional basketball player, right? But if I would look at my internal strengths and weaknesses, I don't think that a 65-year-old male who used to be 6'7" but now is 5'5" is going to be very competitive as a professional basketball player. So what you're trying to achieve is some kind of fit or alignment between your an assessment of the opportunities and threats and your internal strengths and weaknesses before you make a move. And then there are a variety of generic moves that I would consider BS, which actually has a little BS involved. Within the strategic discipline, there's a differentiation between business strategy and corporate strategy. Business strategy is about, given that you're in a particular business, in this case, lodging, given that you're in that business, what kind of products you can offer, what price points, and what are the attributes that are going to differentiate your products. So it's how do you compete within the business that you're in. That's what we mean by business strategy. And by corporate strategy, which is the CS, which is a slightly different question, is what business should I be? Should I be competing in this business at all of lodging? I mean, I know that at a certain point in time, I've just heard many of the people who had properties, who had wasn't, they could get more money. It was a hassle to run. Maybe there was some kind of family turnover, and they could get more money off the real estate than continuing to run them. So they were making a decision not to be in the business anymore. The key thing in corporate strategy, there's three elements. You can merge, acquire, or divest. So you can actually leave businesses. That's part of the game as well. I call that MAD. Merge, acquire, divest, mutual assured destruction. You remember the 1950s? Because it's very, very risky. I mean, if you think about some companies engaging in acquisitions, and you think about, this is going to sound very political, but it's okay. Carly Fiorina, when she was at HP, she destroyed, that's very political, a great company called HP, because at the very moment where she had the same, basically, internal strengths and weaknesses as Steve Jobs, he's moving into the smartphone business. She's buying at a great expense and a great struggle, because the Hewlett-Packard company didn't want this to happen. The Hewlett-Packard family didn't want this to happen. She's buying a PC company, right? She's buying Compaq. And that really ended up destroying the company. So a couple of weeks ago, we hear that they're splitting up and they're laying off 100,000 workers. 100,000 workers. That's not like 5, 10,000. That's 100,000. And that all goes back to that really bad acquisition that she made. So acquisitions can be very, very dangerous activities. And then the next two are, G is global strategy. Global strategy, I think, actually, I haven't heard entirely how it affects you, but I think it does affect you a great deal. So you have to think about your supply of workforce, your workforce today. As I've heard from many of you, come from exchange students. That's an example of a global phenomenon that's affecting you. Another thing that I think is probably affecting you with regard to global strategy is, in theory, you probably would like to pull in some of the Japanese tourists who go to Mall of America and bring them out here, but I think even more importantly, in terms of global strategy, many of your clientele now have, when they think about their travel options, it's so much more common for people to travel globally than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Remember when I first started teaching at the University of Minnesota 30 years ago, I would ask students, how many of you have traveled abroad? And I would get somebody's hand going up a little bit like this, and I said, where did you go? And he said, I was in Canada once. And I said, that's very exotic, And now I ask my students, everybody's hand goes up, nearly everybody, and they've been to Asia, they've been all over the world. So we have a much smaller world.